Welcome. Today, we're diving into one of the most mysterious visions in the entire Bible, a 2,000-year-old command to literally measure the temple of God. Now, in a book that's just packed with powerful, symbolic imagery, this one is a real head-scratcher. So let's get right into it.
So this is where it all kicks off, with this really strange command from the book of Revelation. The prophet John gets handed a measuring reed and a simple, yet totally baffling instruction. Measure the temple, measure the altar, and measure the people worshiping inside.
And this immediately brings up a huge question, right? What on earth could this possibly mean? You can't just take a tape measure to the divine, so what is actually being commanded here?
Well, the key is to think of it less like an architectural survey and more like a divine quality inspection. Yeah, this command to measure is really a command to evaluate, to assess the true state of things.
So how do we start to decode this vision? Our very first clue is the instrument John is given. See, it's not just any old measuring stick, it's a reed like unto a rod. And that last part, that's where things get really interesting. You know, the original Greek word used here is rhabdos, and it's got this fascinating double meaning. Yes, it can be a measuring stick, but it's also the word for a rod of authority, of power, and even discipline. So this isn't just about finding a dimension, it's about applying a standard with authority. And as you can see, this whole idea of symbolic measurement isn't a one-off thing. It's actually a recurring theme in the Bible. The prophet Ezekiel measures a temple, Zechariah sees a guy with a measuring line, and later on in Revelation, a golden reed is used. This pattern tells us we're looking at a well-known prophetic act for evaluation, not some literal construction project.
Okay, so if we've established it's not a physical building in Jerusalem, then what exactly is undergoing this divine inspection? The vision names three specific things: the temple, the altar, and the worshipers. Let's break down what each of these really represents.
First up, the temple. This is not a building made of stone and mortar. It's the inner place, the hearts of believers, the very place God's presence is supposed to live. It's a powerful throwback to when Jesus himself called his own body the temple. Next is the altar. This symbolizes the purity of the sacrifice. So the evaluation here isn't about how many animals are being offered. It's a measure against the one, perfect, finished work of Jesus. No other offering can even come close.
And finally, the worshipers themselves. They are seen as the vessel. And what's being measured isn't their outward religious show, but the internal reality, their genuine faith, their inner purity, their actual devotion. It's what's on the inside that counts here.
So this measurement is drawing a massive line in the sand between two totally different systems. On one side, you've got the old external system that's being judged. It's all about empty rituals, where God's Spirit is basically an outsider. But on the other, you have true worship being preserved, authentic, internal, and all centered on Jesus. I mean, the text describes this judged system in some pretty harsh terms, calling it a form of Baal-style worship. And that's a direct shot at the pagan idol worship from the Old Testament. It's a religious system that's just going through the motions. And God basically says he doesn't recognize it anymore. So the command to measure is a command to judge this inauthenticity.
Now, you might be wondering, why start here? Why measure the temple and the worshipers first? Well, it all comes down to a core theological principle, and we find it right in the book of 1 Peter.
And the scripture says it plain as day. Judgment must begin at the house of God. The evaluation has to start with those who claim to represent God, to make sure the foundation is solid before any other judgment can happen. It's all about cleaning your own house first.
So all of this brings us to the climax of the vision. An investigation has happened, a standard has been applied. What's the final verdict? What is the whole point of this divine measurement anyway? And here it is, the crucial point of the whole thing. The act of measuring here isn't about destruction, it's about separation. It's about making a crystal clear distinction between what is genuine and what is fake. You can really break this whole process of divine judgment down into three simple steps. First, there's an investigation into the true state of things. Second, there's a measurement against that perfect standard. And third, there's a separation, distinguishing the authentic from the imitation.
In the result, the true, the authentic inner temple, altar, and worshipers, they are preserved, they're protected. But the false, what the very next verse calls the outer court of empty religion, that gets cast out to be, well, trampled.
So look,
If you take just one thing away from all of this, let it be this. In this vision, measuring is judgment, and judgment is the careful, authoritative act of separating the true from the false. Simple as that.
And this leaves us with a final, really powerful question. Because this vision isn't just about some ancient system, it turns the lens right back on us. It forces us to ask, if that divine measuring rod were applied today, what would it find? What really is the measure of true worship?